Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. It's good to be with you on a Friday. Weekend right around the corner. Show jam-packed with news. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Lot to cover. A marquee restaurant in the city of Charlottesville, done. Closed, finito, hasta luego, peaced out. This one hurts. This one's new news, has not been reported anymore. Has not been reported by anyone. We have that story for you today on the I Love CVille Show. If you care about downtown mall restaurants, sit back, have a bourbon, have a beer, have a glass of wine, because this downtown mall restaurant's a big one. It's closing, and you're going to shed a tear. You're going to shed a tear. We have a royal rumble of epic proportions going on with the city manager, the chief executive officer of Charlottesville City, and Dr. Darring Richardson. And Dr. Richardson goes toe-to-toe with Andrew Baxter, the fire chief for the city of Charlottesville. And they're going toe-to-toe like all year, round 6, round 7. Richardson's giving him a right cross. Baxter's trying to give him the hook to the gut. Richardson's moving, and he's laterally quick, and he's got some power. And this 12-round brouhaha ends with the fire chief peacing out. His face hits the canvas, and now the fire chief, Andrew Baxter, resigns on the spot because of friction and issues and beef with the city manager, the chief executive officer. And guys, there's a little bit of history with friction and the city manager's tactics with how he's running this city. The dude's making over $200K, total compensation package, compensated extremely well, okay? And there seems to be loggerheads in City Hall with how Dr. Richardson is running the city. That story coming up for you. We're going to talk about a music venue on the Charlottesville downtown mall that is changing its concept, or at least pivoting its model. A marquee venue says COVID-19 is going to dramatically impact live music, and this is how we're going to respond. No one's reported that story. Get ready for it. Red light management making moves. Someone tag Corin Capsule. Give it a like, give it a share right now, guys. Like and share the show now, please. We are live on 12 different Facebook pages. School resource officers, the policemen in schools, now no more at Charlottesville City Schools. The city, the school, Charlottesville City Schools, Charlottesville City Hall, and the Charlottesville Police Department came to an agreement, all three, that said $300,000 to keep school resource officers in the hallways of city schools. We're not going to do that anymore. Get out of our hallway. Go get in a patrol car and stay out of our classrooms. Allocate that $300,000 that you were spending to schools, to teaching assistants, reinstating the Spanish program for elementary schools, doing it for curriculum and educational purposes, as opposed to policing the educational hallways in our community. So it's an interesting dichotomy that's happening, and it ties into a theme that we've had this week of how COVID-19 is undoubtedly impacting education, how the George Floyd murder is undoubtedly impacting education, and potentially enhancing the value proposition of private schools. Will we see an uptick in private school enrollment over the next 12 to 24 months? I think so. That story for you on the I Love CVille Show. A lot we got to cover. Matt Darring's going to join us in 17 minutes. We'll hear from Lisa Hernon, a fabulous leader in our community. She's an activist. She's an African-American businesswoman. She's a realtor. She shares her perspective on the murder of George Floyd and how it pertains to Charlottesville, Virginia on this show. Before we go anywhere, we're an advertising agency, and we love working with businesses from New Providence, New Jersey to Asheville, North Carolina, but our heart and soul is here in the Commonwealth, and two of our favorites, a 4-generation strong family and Interstate Pest and Service Companies, just amazing people, committed to their team members and committing to their customers alike. Interstate Pest and Service Companies. I mean, the company started in 1969 with a pickup truck and payphones and one-man sweat equity. And now it's so legit. So legit. And Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. I have seen people go into Dr. Wagner's office hunched over, shuffling their feet and struggling to walk. And after treatment, chiropractic care, physical therapy, and just a plan, they leave walking straight. I've literally seen it firsthand. with my eyeballs. All right, Judah Wickhauer, our director, let's run some headlines. How about we start with the fire chief? Let's get that on screen. Are you guys following this? Okay, the fire chief, if you're not following this, the fire chief's name is Andrew Baxter. And Andrew Baxter is at the pinnacle of his profession as the fire chief of a world-class city like Charlottesville. When you get in and you want to pursue a career as a firefighter, and you're climbing the ladder, the top of the totem pole is fire chief. So Andrew Baxter, who's respected and beloved by firemen and community members alike, he's at the top of the totem pole, and for an extended period of time. And how we know this is because the Daily Progress and Nolan Stout and Catherine Knott, Daily Progress has been doing a strong job here. They basically did a request where you can see documents between the city because it's up for grabs, okay? And they tracked emails between the city manager and between the fire chief. And here's what it comes down to in a very digestible, ear candy for your soul standpoint. I'll cut through the noise. The fire chief and the city manager. And Judah, you put the headline on? Get the headlines on there and the photos on there too. Please, sir. Thank you, Judah. The fire chief and the city manager don't like each other. The fire chief has had more tenure than the city manager. The city manager, however, has more authority. He's the CEO. The fire chief is below the CEO. Still upper management, but not at the CEO level. And this back and forth brouhaha between these two led to the fire chief quitting on the spot, resigning effective immediately yesterday. The fire chief has said, I've issued numerous complaints with the city manager. We'll take it a step further. Remember on this very program when we welcomed 2 Charlottesville firemen to the set? We had the head of the Charlottesville Firefighters Union and Greg Wright on the show. And prior to having Greg Wright, the head of the Charlottesville Firefighters Union, on this set and on the I Love CVille show, the city manager and the head of the Firefighters Union were going back and forth and squabbling. And the city manager basically told the head of the Firefighters Union, you have no experience, you have no idea what you're talking about, please stop talking. And I'm making that nice. Really what he said was much more aggressive and worse. So I'm going to wrap a bow on this. We have a CEO of our city, the most powerful city official, undoubtedly more powerful from a decision-making standpoint than even Mayor Walker. We have a gentleman who's making over $200,000 of taxpayer dollars that we contribute to the city, okay? Over $200K. And what I'm seeing in about a year of him being on the job is him having a real difficult time getting along with people. Real difficult time. It's a crazy time we live in, right? It's a crazy time we live in. We're uncertain about downtown. We got city manager can't get along with the fire department. We're pulling, and let's go to the next story, we're pulling the police officers out of the schools, okay? And I'm not going to go down the road of whether or not we think that police officers should be in schools or not. That's a conversation for you guys to have. I don't want to cover that now. This is what I want to cover. I want to cover, and you got that second headline up? You do? $300,000 additional dollars where the policemen were in the schools. The budget allocated $300,000 to have the policemen in the schools. What are we going to do with the $300K? I think you probably go with some teaching assistants, maybe try to get that Spanish program back on the books. I think the story to really cover is like, fire department's going to be completely different. Police department is a huge push from the community to defund it and to make it look completely different. So you have the departments that keep us safe in alive and free from burning, and keep our houses above ground, and keep people from speeding and hurting each other, and breaking and entering, and all that stuff, the police and the fire. And then you throw in the EMTs, and the EMTs are telling us this. The EMTs are telling us this. We don't have enough money or resources to keep this department in the direction we're going. The fire department is telling us this. Guys, we are so short-staffed, we don't have enough money to do what we're doing. Fire chief just resigned as well. Police department, this is what's happening to the police department. Get the police officers out of the schools and further defund the police department so they don't have to wear so many hats as they're doing now. So you have the three departments in our community that keep us healthy, that keep us safe, that keep us from burning, keep us from dying. And the EMTs are being kicked to the curb. The fire chief in the fire department is so pissed off that the fire chief quits on the spot. The police department is scarlet lettered right now. And it's not all police officers, ladies and gentlemen, are bad, but all police officers are being scarlet lettered, which is horribly unfortunate. The officers are being pulled from the schools, and a rally is going on this Saturday at the John Paul Jones Arena with people from the community to further defund the CPD. It is an interesting time, a brave new world, ain't it? It's a brave new world. Give the show a like and a share if you like this content. We are live on 12 Facebook pages, and Matt Darring is going to join us in T-minus 9 minutes. I think you're going to be very impressed with Matt Darring. He's got a very analytical mindset, but he's got a heart of gold. Now, where's this going to take us? And get the Lee Elberson sizzle reel ready to go. We had Lee Elberson, the Chief Executive Officer of Clayborne Education, on the show yesterday, and he literally, as the CEO of Clayborne Education, a tutoring company, he works alongside public and private school students and public and private school teachers and public and private school parents. And I said, Lee, schools, public, are low on funding. Schools, public, are searching for an identity. How does this impact the educational landscape? A public school across America, name them, literally searching for its identity as it moves to more a technology-based educational learning world. I said, Lee and Judah, you got that ready to go? Public versus private, what's going to happen with mommy and daddy when it comes to Trey and Taylor, when it comes to Junior and baby Susie? I want to hear Lee. Play it in 3, and 2, and 1. Please ask your guest this question. My husband and I were already thinking about sending our son or daughter to private school. This is pushing us in that direction even harder. Can you ask your guest about this?
I've been saying this, and I think I said this in a few other shows. The value proposition for private schools has never been higher. When you look at the types of schools that were extremely successful in this transition, it was small private schools like Regents and Renaissance. Obviously Tandem and Covenant and St. Anne's. They also did a great job because they took exactly what they did and they transitioned it to a learning environment, and those schools were very successful. So yes, I will say that the value proposition for private schools has never been higher.
See, what's happened, guys, this is what's happened, at least from my perspective. This is what just in one person's perspective has seen. In about a 60-day period, and don't hold me exact to the numbers, call it a roughly 60-day period. In a roughly 60-day period, Americans, Virginians, and Charlottesvillians, we experience two very different phenomenons in COVID-19 and the murder of George Floyd in a 60-day period. And these two, one a gruesome murder, one a horrible pandemic. And these two things collided upon us at a roughly 60-day period of time. If COVID-19 wasn't enough, we had the very realization, the very real storyline of racial disparity that undoubtedly exists really show itself when a police officer murdered a black man in Minneapolis. So in a 60-day period, we're dealing with COVID, and we're dealing with George Floyd and nationwide protests, and we're about to deal with these statues this summer. So these elements that are happening at the same time are expediting change across sectors all over the world. And whether it's retail, whether it's restaurants, whether it's the music industry, whether it's tourism, travel, undoubtedly education, changing everything. And I will bet you, you're going to see an uptick in enrollment in private schools and potentially a downtick in diversity in public schools. Let's see what happens. Now, speaking of music venues changing models and how COVID-19 has dramatically impacted the industry of live music, I was walking down the downtown mall yesterday with my mentor, whose name is Bill Nichman. And Bill Nichman is a massive property owner in the city of Charlottesville. I look up to him. I've learned so much from him. And as I'm building my real estate portfolio, I've leveraged much of the same strategies and tactics of Bill Nichman when he's built probably, I have no idea, $40, $50 million of wealth. So I'm walking next to him up and down the mall. And as we're walking from the pavilion side of the mall to the Omni side of the mall, as we make our loop and chat, and I'm learning from him, I'm like a sponge. And I'm like a sponge around anybody, especially him. We pass the Jefferson Theater. And Judah, put the photos on screen. We pass the Jefferson Theater, and look at screen. If you guys are watching the live version, there's value here, and I think I can even put them on screen behind me too. We pass the Jefferson Theater, and we see this sign, this V-shaped sign, and I got it on screen behind me. You have it on screen for the viewers, Judah? There's two of them I sent you. Look at the screen now. Look at the screen now. Look at the screen now. You see the V-shape for the Jefferson Hotel V sign in front of the theater. And me and Bill are walking, we're like, what the hell is this? JeffHotel.com. This is news that is going to be in the newspapers and the TV and radio stations. You're hearing it here first, and we are undoubtedly going to impact the news cycle again by reporting this to you. And the reporters that are watching the show now, this will turn into news. So you're watching the I Love CVille Network, determine the news that you're about to read tomorrow and the next day. And you see that every single day you turn on this program. This company is determining the news that you read. So the Jefferson Hotel is pivoting to or adjusting its model to include a hotel concept. Now, here's the intriguing thing. I went to that website. It's JEFFHOTEL.com. JeffHotel.com. I went to that website yesterday, and it was open, it was legit, it showed the rooms, it had pricing, it had a calendar, it had availability, it had an opportunity for you to book. I go to that website right now, JeffHotel.com, and ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, German Shepherds and Chow Chows, it is not live. It is behind a WordPress accessed by a password wall. They don't want you yet to know what's going on. Let me put it over here back on screen. So, Corin Capshaw. Someone tell Corin Capshaw we're talking about his business. Red light management. If live music cannot go back to what it was, and you can't run a venue successfully at 50% capacity, that's a fact. Are they pivoting the model to have hotels on the mall instead of a music venue? Interesting, right? You saw it on screen. You saw it on screen. Now, here's the cool thing. As me and Bill Nitchman are walking, doing our loop, and we're like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? The Jefferson Theater has got a V-shaped sign outside that says jeffhotel.com. What the hell is this? As we go to the Omni and we turn back around, we pass some folks that are leaving Commonwealth Skybar. I'm not going to say who it was. I promised them I wouldn't say who it was. Right? I promised them I wouldn't say who they worked for. And I'm a man of my word. But what I can tell you, because I told them I was going to say it, is Commonwealth Skybar is no longer Commonwealth Skybar. And Commonwealth Skybar is not going to open again as Commonwealth Skybar. It's not going to open this summer. And should it happen, it's not going to be under that brand. Renovations are happening there. Do you have that photo on screen? Put it on screen. This is arguably, and tell me when it's there, and I'm going to put it on screen behind me. I love working with this little, I just love the technology we're developing. It's behind me now. Go, you know what? Go to the one shot on me, Judah. And Matt, we're going to go to Matt Darring here in a matter of a moment. You got the one shot on me? All right, look at right here. And you know what? Go to the studio camera, please. Look at the screen, boys and girls. This behind me is arguably the sexiest restaurant on the downtown mall. I mean, does this not look sexy? I think the sexiest restaurants at the downtown mall, what are they? Skybar and Fitzroy, maybe? From like a design and a sex appeal standpoint. Okay, you go to a place, you're in your 20s or your 30s, maybe your early 40s, and you're trying to meet some beautiful people. You're going here, especially late night. You now have the Downtown Grill, Skybar, not opening again, Bluegrass Grill, I mean, key players downtown. We're hearing scuttlebutts of other restaurants not reopening, and Red Pump Kitchen, while they are not going to close, Red Pump Kitchen is not going to open the entire summer. Instead, they're going to encourage people to go to Pippin Hill, their sister property, as opposed to the downtown mall. I'm going to ask again that our Charlottesville City Council members and Dr. Richardson to please be innovative and entrepreneurial when creating a reason to come downtown. Because no one on council and no one on City Hall has stood up for the small business owner in Charlottesville and said, we got your back and this is what we're going to do. Okay? No one's done it. Give the show a like and a share if you like what you're hearing. Give the show a like hammer the like button, please, right now. And share it on your Facebook pages, please. I'm going to go to Matt, Judah. I'm Skyping him now, Matt Darring. I'm excited to welcome him to the show. Matt is an analytical mind, a good guy. Judah, I have Matt on the line. I'm excited to welcome him. Matt, if you can hear me, if we can get you to turn on your camera so we can see that handsome mug of yours. And we will go to you here on the I Love CVille Show. You got that camera turned on for us, Matt?
I'm working on it.
Okay, no problem. So this is going to be his second rodeo on the show. This man is an avid mountain biker. I've followed on social media his travels around mountain biking trails with his son. This man loves this community, loves the city garden, has an analytical mind, but a huge heart. I'm going to get out of your way, Matt. You are live. A lot of folks watching you here. Introduce yourself, and then let's get into some storylines. Who's Matt?
So my name's Matt Darring. I moved to Charlottesville in 2005, so 15 years ago, this month, actually. And and so I currently work at UVA, and I'm on the board for a couple of not-for-profits in town. And like I said, I enjoy. I live inside the city of Charlottesville, over in the Fry Springs neighborhood, and I love it here. It's fantastic.
He's got 2 kids, fabulous wife, husband, father, good person here. All right, this is what I'm excited about you, is you're so up to speed with everything. I'm just going to get out of your way. I'm going to say storyline, first storyline that you're following, why it's important, and what we need to know, and then I'm going to react to you. What's the first storyline that we should be following and why it's important?
I mean, I think for me personally, the things that I'm following nationally and locally and statewide are all around, systemic racism. So I think that the murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and obviously especially George Floyd have in the through the lens of the pandemic have changed things. I think the pandemic put a more of a focus on some of those things because people have more time. So they aren't as busy running back and forth to lacrosse games and going to underwater basket weaving or whatever it is that they're doing, and so they have more time to pay attention to those things. And I think also with George Floyd, it's I think the reason why this one struck a nerve so much is because it takes 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And it's you're watching somebody who starts off at the beginning of it as a robust individual, and by the end of it's unconscious, and it's a slow strangulation, and it's just wrenching. And I personally have. I mean, the other thing is I'm George Floyd on some level. If you want to get what a white counterpart looks like, I'm about the same age, about the same height, about the same weight, and so to and I that used to work at a bank in Ann Arbor, and I remember him joking around a couple of years ago about people bringing in counterfeit money, and he said, yeah, you could always pick it out because it looked different, felt different, it was easy to pick out. So I checked in with him and I was like, hey, I just wanted to check and see, was anybody that brought in counterfeit money, were they ever killed outside of the bank? And it was like, no, nobody's ever. And so this is not something that is isolated. It's not one case. And that is also just an allegation of what happened for him. And it's definitely not a capital offense, but for George Floyd, it was. And so those are the things that are top of mind for me. That's what I'm following the most. I think also, it's hard to leave behind the pandemic. I know 4 people on a first name basis that are that have tested positive. 2 that had to go to the hospital, 2 that stayed home and weathered the symptoms at home, with close monitoring via by telehealth. So it's hard to get away from that, obviously. And also, it's been seeing what happens as things open up. I'm presently work in data visualization, so I'm kind of fascinated by all the maps and trends and things that are out there, and to see where things are spiking and what the effect is.
What did you? Tough question for you here.
Yeah.
What did you tell your son and daughter about the murder of George Floyd? Did you tell them anything? And is the conversation? How's the And then second part of the question is, how about the conversation with your son and daughter about the pandemic and comparing and contrasting it to George Floyd? I mean, 2 very real and heavy subjects there. Yeah.
That for the pandemic, it was there was a rather direct impact with them because then they came home from school and their world kind of got upheavaled, so that's been kind of a gradual conversation, and going through and talking about how it's moved around with the anti-racism and with George Floyd. my kids are about 4 years apart, so I've had a little bit different conversations with them. But we've had very direct conversations. And part of that is because, I know through work that I've done before this spring on myself, that for Black families specifically, and for a lot of non-white families, talking about race is not a optional thing, and it happens on a daily basis. It happens at an early age, and it happens often. And so not talking about race is a white option in America. And so but it's been kind of reiterated over and over and over again with what's happened with post George Floyd, and so I've made sure that we've had very frank conversations about what is systemic racism. Myself, my family is from the Deep South, and it dates back to the 1700s. So you don't have to work real hard to find people that were slave owners in my ancestry. And there are lots of them. And it's difficult to read the obituaries and the wills and go through, and it just lists off just numbers of people, no names. So we've had pretty frank conversations. We've also decided to watch some movies. So one of the things that we watched was Selma, and we did that one because at my son's school, they were for their concert, which ended up getting canceled. They were going to sing John Legend's song "Glory" from Selma, and there's also a rapper in there that his name starts with a C, but I'm failing on it right now. But of which my son really liked that part. He wanted to do the rap part of it and knows it almost all by word. I mean, he knows the whole song. So Common, that was his name. And initially, like back he really wanted, after they started to learn that song, he really wanted to watch the movie, and we were like, it's PG-13, it's and then after this, it was like, you know what? Never mind. Because like one example that I saw was the farmer at Savanco Farms gave a story about how when he was 9, so same age as my son, the police came to his school and told his school, his classmates, what they should do when, not if, but when they're arrested by the police. And they're 9. And so
that's not good.
Yeah, so that's and so that's when we kind of started to make the pivot that we need to have
some real talks.
Yeah, and behave more like our BIPOC neighbors, and act like they do, so that our kids don't grow up in this bubble that the kids around them aren't in,
right.
And so that they can start to feel that and start to understand that at an earlier age. I think that that's important, because if you start to calve off and you start to live in a bubble, and I heard what you were saying about private schools, and being somebody that went to public school through 8th grade and then private school from 9th grade on, I can say to any parent that's out there, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. My private school education did not give me a massive leg up over what I learned in public school. I loved my private school. I love my classmates. I'm still in touch with a lot of them on social media. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that what you're paying for is more for your own emotion.
You're questioning the value proposition is what you're doing. Yeah, that's what I totally get that. Let me throw this to you. And Judah, let's do this. So much I want to cover with him. If you go to the chat we have with Matt on Facebook Messenger, as we talked about before, there's some great photos that he sent us from the protests. So if you can go get those photos, Judah, and get those on screen, because I want to throw them to Matt. Did you, your wife, your 2 kids, did you guys walk the protest? Was it Saturday or the previous weekend?
So we went to the one that was Sunday.
Okay.
So
Tell us about that experience.
It was remarkable. So I didn't go to the first one the Saturday before, and I'll be 100% honest with you. What happened was I'm in a online MBA program at Longwood right now, and my weeks run Saturday to Saturday.
You're grinding right now.
Yeah, well, it's a time to
Right.
grow, right? It's like when it gets tough, that's when you work harder. So, my wife's in a master's program online too. So yeah, we're taking it from all angles. But so my week runs Saturday to Saturday. So I had some stuff that I had to turn in, and then the pandemic, I was just like, I just don't. I'd feel horrible if I went down and contracted it or got somebody else sick or something. And so I chickened out. And then I felt horrible. And then whenever I saw that there was going to be another protest on Sunday, I was like, I'm not chickening out this time. I had some N95 masks that I had left over from woodworking, the package had been open, so we couldn't really donate it because they weren't, so we've been using those for whenever we go into any kind of serious situation, where there's lots of people. But the cool thing is we got down to the protest, and I would say 95% of the people were wearing masks, maybe more. I don't remember seeing anyone in my area that I saw that was not wearing a mask. So it's an extremely conscious group of people. And it stretched. We started over at the Free Speech Wall and walked all the way to the Rotunda. One of the biggest event was whenever we went over the bridge at the Amtrak station, and the unfortunately recently closed Wild Wings, you could look all the way down to the corner and there were people, and you look all the way back to Lewis and Clark and there were people. And those are the pictures I sent you, was from the top of that, because I got to the top of that and I was like, oh.
That's awesome. So you were kind of like right there on that hill where you could see everything.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It was phenomenal. And people had drones flying over. I haven't seen any footage from the drones, but I would love to see that. So the estimate was 1,000 people. I've seen groups of 1,000 people. I've seen groups of 5,000 people. I don't think this was 1,000 people. If you came through and told me that this was 2,000 or 3,000 people, I wouldn't deny it. I mean, to stretch that many people across and cover that much territory, I think there was a lot of people there, and it was great to see. What was
the thinking with bringing your kids?
So I just brought my daughter.
Okay.
So my son decided that he didn't want to go, and my wife didn't want to go either. She had a conflict, and David didn't. He didn't feel like walking so much at that point. So but Caroline wanted to go, and so we went down there, I did get text messages from my son. So he messaged me. He was like, "Has there been any violence? Are you okay?" So he was worried. He's aware of what's going on. We had gone to Richmond because my dog had to go over to a vet over there for a procedure, and so we had seen some of the aftermath of some of the things. And one of the things I made sure that we saw is we went down to the Daughters of the Confederacy, and you could see where it had been targeted. But then right next to it, the Virginia Museum of Culture and History, unscathed. Right on the other side of it, the Virginia Fine Art Museum, unscathed. So completely untouched. And the church right across the street, the houses right around. The image that you get on TV is raging mobs, but they're focused. And even in Minneapolis, where it's probably the most raging of the raging mobs, the first place they went was Target. And the reason why they went to Target is because Target paid for cameras to be around South Minneapolis. So they targeted Target for what they've done. So which I didn't even know about that before this. I didn't even know that Target had done anything like that.
I think everyone does, especially the folks that are listening here, value your perspective here. How do you characterize, from your perspective, how do you characterize this time in Charlottesville and this time in, say, America?
This is so I'm going to give you my hope, is that this is a hinge point. This is one of those things that is a hinge point, and we will denote time before this and denote time after this. And I think that was going to happen anyway with the pandemic, right? But maybe there will be something different. But I think this is a hinge point. This is 9/11. This is the Edmund Pettus Bridge. This is whatever you want to name it. I think my hope is that this is a hinge point, and that we really, really, really start to do the things.
Break down the concept of hinge point further.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where you see like what life was like before that and what life was like after that. So it's an inflection point. It's one of those things that caused a change. Like with the financial crisis when Bear Stearns went belly up, that was the hinge point, and it was like that's when everybody was like, "Oh, this is serious." But I feel like people will look back at this time and realize this was a hinge point, and this was when people really started to focus on systemic racism and eradicating it, and understanding the evilness and the tenaciousness and the pernaciousness of it, and really started to work to eradicate that.
That's a strong take. Cut that into a highlight clip, please. I could not agree with this man more. Let's play that on Monday's show. I think he's 100% right. You've made this easy. I think in 20 minutes I've said 15 words, and you've made the show better, which is a testament to your perspective. Why don't we give you anywhere you want to go? See, I know you have so much that you're thinking of, and we probably haven't even gotten to half the stuff that you want to cover, which is often how it happens in these interviews. So anywhere you want to go, any topic at all. I just want to listen.
Okay. I mean, the thing is that I like your perspective on things where you say we've got to be creative, we've got to be entrepreneurial, and we've got to find a way to innovate our ways out of this. And that goes for not just the pandemic, but also for systemic racism. We've got to think in ways that are different than how we've thought about before in the past. People, I know the police, and the funding of the police is a hot button issue for a lot of people. But I think if we can chill out for a second and think about, like, for a policeman, if you poll them, and there's things out there to capture this, upwards of over 80% of the calls that they answer are not the big things like robbery and theft and rape and murder and that kind of stuff. The big things, that most of them are noise complaints, domestic issues, things that really require social workers, psychologists, people that have skills in those areas. And I think if I was a policeman, I would love to be able to, all right, I mean, hell, even my own current job, I like doing the things that I'm trained to do and the things that I'm good at. I really get nervous when I get into a situation where I have to do something that I'm not trained to do. I don't have experience and I'm not good at it. And I think policemen, policemen and policewomen would feel the same way, that put me in the place where my training is at best use. And we've seen that with other areas that are analogous. Nation building with a military, probably not the best. That's a different skill set. And it's not that the military's bad. My brother is in the Navy. My dad served in the Army. I'm from the Deep South, so I got tons of veterans all over my family. So the military is not bad. That's not what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that they're trained on certain things. It's the same thing with the police. I'm not saying the police are bad. I'm just saying that they're trained with certain areas, and to expect them to go into situations to be a Swiss Army knife and solve all ills, it's just not. We do the same thing to teachers. We put them in situations where they have to answer everything. It's not fair. We need to support them, and pay for other positions to augment that. It's the same thing with police. My heart would hurt for a police person that goes into a situation where their training is not helpful for them, and they find themselves in a situation they're not trained for and can't handle. That would make my heart hurt for them. And I don't well, I don't want that. And so to rethink and be innovative and be entrepreneurial about what is public safety and what do we really need to make communities safe and to make people safe. And then also thinking about our structures, and whether or not you're talking about seed money when it comes to investment into stuff. The average startup company gets $2 million worth of funding in seed money. The average startup that's started by an African American person in this country gets $46,000. We need to change how we set up our investment structures, and so we have to so that people can be able to move at the same rate of pace as the group around them. But we've got to be creative in all these different ways, and that's the thing is that if you look at the poem on the side of the Graduate Hotel by Rita Dove, the world called, and I answered. The world is calling right now. The question is, are we going to be silent? Are we going to close ourselves off to it? Or are we going to answer? That's the big question of the moment. And I think what we have to do is we have to answer. And I think if we work with our better angels, and what we're strong at as Americans, then we will innovate our ways out of it. And that will be the best possible.
Good take right there. You crushed it, dude. That was like 25 minutes. Amazing today, per usual.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt Darring, guys, absolutely phenomenal on today's show. I would like to get the Lisa sizzle reel set up, Lisa Herndon. It's a perfect segue into this. Judah, if you could get that and let me know when you have that ready. Did you play his photos? Did you air his photos from the protest? Okay, let's get them back on screen if you could. And let's get them on screen now. Guys, I want you to take a look at these photos on screen and tell me when they're up. They're up. Thank you, sir. These photos make me proud of Charlottesville. Very, very proud of Charlottesville. Get Lisa Herndon's sizzle reel ready to go. While we are proud of Charlottesville, Lisa Herndon, fabulous realtor, says we still have a long way to go. Judah, give us that sizzle reel in 3, 2, and 1. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. You're doing amazing on this interview. I'd like to ask you what was going through your mind initially as the entire country was captivated with murder in Minneapolis with George Floyd.
Floyd?
I think it's paramount that we have this discussion, and then we'll go from the macro in Minneapolis down to here in Charlottesville and what you've seen over the couple of weeks in Charlottesville. I'll get out of your way. The show is yours. What'd you think of? What'd you make of this?
It was always just a matter of time for the next situation to happen, and which, I see myself as an activist as well, and I have been on the front lines of these protests. I've marched right in the front. I've marched from downtown to the streets of the Rotunda just this past weekend, and I've gone to support other small communities. I've marched with the activists in Orange County and in my local Greene County area where I was born and raised. Now is the time. At what point is white America going to say African Americans and people of color have been brutalized, raped, stolen from their countries? At what point do we have to continue to suffer that you're going to wake up? So now you see people protesting and you see people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. But that is the actions of people who feel that they have not been heard. At what point is the nation going to wake up? I say now. And I'm here to help lead the charge, because all of it ties back to wealth inequality and inequality on so many levels. So that's why I'm here to help in the housing area. I need to stay where I'm an expert in, but everyone can help out. Don't just shy away from the difficult conversations. Where are you? What does your friend group look like? I have 3 daughters, and every one of their friend group is multiracial, diverse in gender, sex, all of it. What does your friend group look like? Who have you reached out? And stop asking, what can I do? And go do something. Because now is the time, and there's a lot of frustration, and deservingly so.
Fabulous stuff from Lisa. And that was on this morning's edition of Real Talk, powered by the Yes Team Realtors. Keith and Jonas Smith do 2 fabulous programs on our network, the I Love CVille Network, on Tuesdays and Fridays. And Keith welcomed Lisa to the show, a realtor with Keller Williams, and I found her absolutely inspiring. Absolutely inspiring. Guys, give the show a like and a share on any of the Facebook pages that you're watching on. If you have comments that you'd like to relay on air, now's a good time to do it. Just put those comments in the comment section of any of those 12 Facebook pages, and I'll relay some of your perspective on air. I have comments coming in that I want to get to. Colleen Tyler is watching the show. Colleen Tyler says, so sad to hear about Commonwealth Skybar closing. One of the best brunches ever. And that's from Colleen Tyler. The Commonwealth Skybar brunch was fabulous. I thought the food was good. I thought the ambiance was good. I loved having a cocktail or a beer up on the Skybar portion. It was just a classy restaurant. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has changed restaurants forever. And if you're just tuning into the program, Commonwealth Skybar in the Charlottesville Downtown Mall will not open this summer. And when it does reopen, it's going to open under a different name and a different concept. That's very unfortunate news. Keith Smith loves what he's hearing. Hello, my friend. He says, share the I Love CVille love. William McGuire says, Richardson is running Charlottesville into the ground. He says, Jerry Miller, thank you for standing behind the Charlottesville Police Department, the Charlottesville Fire Department, and the Charlottesville Rescue Squad. We are all watching, and we appreciate your support. So if you're tuning into the program now, yesterday, the chief of the fire department, Andrew Baxter, who is at the pinnacle of his career as a fire chief in a world-class city like Charlottesville, he resigned on the spot, effective immediately, because of beef, because of a brouhaha, because of a 12-round knockout, haymaker throwing, heavyweight fight. And Baxter, he hit the canvas. Richardson, he's still standing. But that brand is starting to get a little tarnished because it seems that he's having a hard time working and coexisting with other leadership in our community. Aaron Kingsley says, interesting take from Aaron Kingsley. I think it's going to happen. He says, Jerry, let's legalize marijuana and use the tax money to fund social services and schools so cops and teachers don't have to do everything. I think interesting take. I appreciate his perspective. I think we all see a world where marijuana is going to be legal and it's going to be available for people to go purchase in a brick and mortar storefront. That's going to happen sooner than later. Undoubtedly, the Commonwealth of Virginia and undoubtedly the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County are looking for new and creative ways to drive incremental revenue. And incremental revenue for a business in the city and the county and the Commonwealth are a business. Incremental revenue. Oh, how cool is this? How cool is this? I just got a message from Charlottesville PD that says, Jerry, we got your back. Listen outside. Charlottesville PD, literally, how cool is that? You hear that, Judah? Watching the show with the drive-by. Thank you, guys. That's cool. We're going to be looking for creative ways to find incremental revenue. New revenue, incremental revenue is new revenue. Arguably the most important kind of revenue for a business. And I think you're going to see creative ways like the legalization of marijuana. It's already been decriminalized. It's already been decriminalized. You can do it. Why not take it from the black market and legalize it and tax it? We need revenue. We need revenue. Okay? Would you rather not get extra taxed on your real estate or your business and instead love it? I love it. And would you instead rather have, I love it. I love this show. I love you guys. And wouldn't you instead rather have Wouldn't you instead rather have the taxes come from a new or incremental source? Good point, Aaron Kingsley. Other comments coming in. Jerry, I love your program. We're watching in Roanoke, Virginia. We miss the University of Virginia. We missed our time in Charlottesville. We want to thank you for bringing a taste of Charlottesville to us in Roanoke. Go Who's. And that's from Tim Johnson. Thank you, Timmy. Johnny Ornelas says, Baxter leaving is a loss for our Charlottesville Fire Department. He's exactly right. Marquis Johnson, Chief Baxter brought good to the Charlottesville Fire Department. Marquise Johnson says, screw Dr. Richardson. He did not get knocked out. Thank you for watching, Mr. Johnson. We certainly appreciate you on the show. All right, we'll get out of here on this note. If you're just watching the program, I'll dot the I's and cross the T's. Put the Jefferson Hotel images back on. Is the Jefferson Hotel pivoting its model away from live music, or are these photos just an indication that live music's not going to recover for a long time, so we need to use some of this space to make some money, and we're going to do it from a hotel standpoint? So Judah's got them on screen. I also have them on the big screen behind us. jeffhotel.com. This is in front of the Jefferson Hotel. I went to this website yesterday, and it had hotel rooms in this theater by price point and ready for availability. Today, you go to jeffhotel.com, and it's behind a WordPress no-access wall. So I'll follow that story for you closely. And one more, this one here, Skybar on screen, Judah? No more. Not going to open a Skybar. Won't open this summer. That's the Skybar and Red Pump Kitchen not opening this summer. Red Pump, its ownership, is committed to reopening again. That's the team behind Pippin Hill. This team, I don't know, is going to commit to reopening a restaurant in Charlottesville. So I expect this lease to be up for grabs and a restaurateur to climb in. My name is Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille Show. I love you guys. I love you guys. Be the best version of yourself today, okay? Be the best version of yourself all the time. It's Friday. It's beautiful outside. Get outside, exercise, be safe and healthy about it. Have fun. Have a good one. Peace out. I mean, hey, Judah, that's a sweet photo of a restaurant, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, this has got to be the sexiest restaurant in Charlottesville.